Does America need more gun laws? Or is the government so inept that they can't enforce the laws they already have? Do we have a gun problem? Or is gun violence a symptom of a larger lurking problem? Spoiler alert, the government repeatedly fails to correctly enforce their own laws, and gun control is like putting band-aids on chickenpox. We are in the most peaceful time in history, despite what most major news networks want you to think. They're in the business of selling panic. Violent crime rates are following an overall downward trend since its last peak in 1992. And while we have been sending troops to the Middle East for a little over 16 years now, deaths from war are way down compared to the past. There have been a little less than 7,000 casualties in a war that has lasted nearly 6,000 days, just barely more than one a day, down from the average of 22 a day in Vietnam. However, this downturn does not mean that we are free of violence. But don't accept the mainstream media's idea on how to fix this issue. They purposely leave out just enough information to make their point believable. They are banking on Americans being so lazy that they won't find more information. Yet here we are, fighting for our rights. So today we are debunking gun control proposals. Last Sunday, a man who was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force for domestic violence, either of which is an instant disqualifier from purchasing a gun. In fact, he was only able to purchase a firearm because of government incompetence. The Air Force failed to pass on the information of Kelly's court-martial to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which of course means the government can't even reliably enforce their own laws they already have on the books. I can already hear the leftists saying that this is a one case and is therefore anecdotal evidence. It is perhaps anecdotal if I had set out to prove the U.S. Air Force in particular was unable to properly inform the FBI on a regular basis. However, obviously, we are here to prove that gun laws, on the whole, that are already on the books, are not working to fix the problem, and that the proposed gun laws are ineffective as well. Here's a statistic. 79% of gun-related crimes involved street guns. This is from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, interviewing those prisoners found guilty of any gun-related crime. And it was found that about 9 to 13% more were private purchases in which either the seller knew nothing of the purchaser's background or before any crimes were committed, leaving the following 8 to 12% of firearm-related crimes involving guns bought before any crime has been committed, therefore easily able to pass a background check, proving that most guns used in crime are straw purchases rather than legal gun purchases that led to violent crimes. You might point to Vegas as basically the only bastion of any mass shooting that was completely purchased legally. However, with the jury still out on motivations and many people that were there still claiming that not all of the information is out there, perhaps Las Vegas is a fluke. Now this is where I want to point to Chicago. Chicago is not so strict as it once was, only because the Supreme Court stepped in and ruled their gun laws unconstitutional. However, Illinois State Police agree that Chicago's black market thrives on gang violence and the movement of drugs. The largest black market in the U.S. In fact, violence is very common in black markets. This is a direct cause and effect relationship to prohibition. The black market provides, as demand is not affected by the laws. This is in fact one of the left's biggest supporting arguments for abortion. And as most people know, making weed, heroin, crack cocaine illegal has not ended the demand for these substances. It has in fact made these issues worse, as drug trade is the largest support for the gun black market. The Chicago Tribune will concede that they have a gun black market, and even admits that it is related to gangs and drugs. But they do try to tell us that most of these guns are brought in from out of state. However, this is misleading at best, because most of these guns are handguns, which are illegal to transfer across state lines. This is not to mention that the still very strict gun laws in Illinois, where to purchase any firearm you are required to jump through a number of hoops, enough to support the idea that very few, if any, of these guns were ever sold legally to anyone. Although not a fault of the dealer, it is likely that these weapons are purchased by straw purchasers, perhaps laundered and lost in a boating accident, or filed down as to protect the straw man. Another source of these guns is theft. This practice is already illegal in every state. Because this practice is primarily defined as purchasing for someone who cannot pass the background check, Chicago is still proof that gun control doesn't work, even if it is not so clear-cut as the strictest laws and the highest violent crime rates. New York City now has more strict laws than Chicago, but Chicago is known for their gang violence, which has risen to prominence due in no small part to the war on drugs. Chicago saw nearly 800 dead in 2016. However, between 1982 and 2010, handguns were completely banned in Chicago. Washington, D.C. had similar ideas. The Chicago Tribune points to say that such strict gun control can't work on a municipal level, which obviously is how they try to justify the 156% rise in homicides after D.C. banned them in 1976, compared to the national rise of only 32%, or justifying the Chicago, in their hubris, decided they wanted more dead as well. They saw a 41% increase compared to an 18% increase across the entire U.S. So as the handgun ban started the problem, the war on drugs kept the trend alive. The Tribune will even admit that the ban was worthless in stopping crime, only keeping the guns out of the decent people's hands. Now, I love disproving fake news with their own 7-year-old articles. It's as if they discovered the problem in 2010 and then decided at some point to start making their own failures look like the fault of Indiana. However, Chicago is not the only gun control haven needing to be debunked. Recently, we have seen many proposed legislations to save America from this great evil, which means we've got more targets to hit. First, the bump stock ban, based on the idea that the bump stock actually makes guns fully automatic, when in fact they are, at best, a gimmick that work just about as well as your belt loop. In actuality, automatic fire is not even very effective on point targets, not to mention the ineffectiveness of the bump stock. It doesn't even work that well. And in fact, you could probably shoot just as fast as with a gun that doesn't compromise the connection between the mechanism and the grip, sacrificing accuracy. The bump stock exists only because of gun control, however. Now, how about a smart gun tech, a bill designed to require all new guns to be only usable by an authorized user, most likely through fingerprint recognizing technology like on your iPhone. This is an easy one. This would be prohibitively expensive. This bill is designed to deny the working class, America's temporarily embarrassed millionaires, from their right to self-preservation. Even if it is a scientific breakthrough. Funnily enough, this next one is a loophole that came up after the Charleston, North Carolina shooting. The funny part is that the shooter did not use this so-called loophole, obviously. Dylan LaRoof, a convicted felon, privately purchased his weapon of choice, already illegal. How did he do it? We'll just make something up. In North Carolina, the dealer can authorize the sale after 3 days if they have gotten nothing back from the background check. In other words, if there was nothing to be found or the government shut itself down. How about the PLCAA, which protects manufacturers, distributors, and dealers from being sued if crimes are committed with their product? It makes no sense to target any of those entities in the first place, because they are not at fault for the actions of any individual. It's called accountability, folks, and you are only accountable for your own actions. I know it's a radical idea. The PLCAA does not protect dealers who knowingly sell to a prohibited person. Another one that popped up after the Vegas shooting, this time brought up by a Republican, to prohibit manufacture, possession, or transfer of any part or combination thereof that is designed to increase the rate of fire. This one is simple. It's too open-ended. It includes anything the ATF thinks could improve rate of fire. It would assuredly include bump stock, binary triggers, the gat crank, all of which are at best gimmicks, apart from maybe the binary trigger, and could include match grade triggers, triggers that are dual stage, perhaps, ergonomic grips and stocks even, and perhaps if they are feeling really spicy, they may be even banning you from using your gun with pants on because of your belt loops. Vagity is always a red flag in government. It means that they get to define their terms later. Never allow that. Last but not least, the tried and true assault weapons ban. In other words, the mainstream. Some guns look too scary, and this one's always been in the mainstream media. It's usually characterized by ignorance. Lots of people who don't know what they're talking about. Always a good start for pulling people on board for the anti-gun train. You hardly ever see anyone trying to ban guns who knows anything about guns or basic supply and demand. As you might have already realized, greater gun control will only further vitalize a black market that is already flourishing. Stop trying to cure symptoms. Recognize the disease. There is no gun problem. Guns are merely a tool. No more evil than a pin, a hammer, or a truck. I hope you enjoyed that. Come back next week for more in-depth analysis disproving the regressive lefts. Like this video, leave a comment below, and be sure to subscribe for more.